All right, Grant. How are we, mate?
Good, bro. How are you?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Haven't seen you in a while, my friend. So obviously we caught up. I think we met probably, I think it was early December last year.
Mm-hmm.
I went to like a breathwork retreat, and what I find going to to those places, you meet people who kind of on a similar journey, similar vibration, and people who like to go deep. And I think where I am on my journey, I really appreciate that, and especially with men. Sometimes I don't know why men tend to shy away from that stuff, and I really appreciate some really deep conversations with you. And I felt like we had a real kind of connection straight away.
Yeah.
I can see you're a really good human being. You're on a great journey. So I remember listening to your story, and I was blown away. And me and my missus came back, and you actually left a lasting impression on us. And we were like, that Grant, what a great guy. So I was really kind of happy that we could connect and I could get you on here, my friend.
I love it.
Yeah, how have you been?
Amazing, man. Like, it's just every day. You wake up and it's a new approach and it's a new chance to learn more about yourself and get further down that path.
Well, you've had a bit of a story, my friend. So why don't we go right back? And if you just give me like a high level overview of you, what's made you the man you are today from a kid to where you are in front of us now. Let's go on that little journey with you.
Yeah, well, growing up, I was pretty, people would say I was pretty stubborn.
Yeah.
You couldn't really tell me what to do. I remember there was some times at school where a teacher would I went to a private school and a teacher would tell me, do your tie up, tuck your shirt in. As soon as they turned around, I'll take it further out and loosen the tie even more because I was like, you're not going to tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So that was me. And I sort of skated by I was a big kid, good at sports.
Yeah.
And that was my identity was how I was out there playing sports. And I think on an emotional level, I had a lot of problems with my back because from a young age, I was trying to come down to everyone else's height. I didn't see myself as a big person.
Oh, you're well taller than most kids.
Yeah. I was always the tallest.
Yeah.
I didn't, inside I wasn't a big person. I was a small person. So I was always bringing myself down, shrugging. And I was just a bit of a lost kid, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at what age did you kind of start feeling a bit lost or a bit kind of outside of the norm? What was it that really made you realise that?
High school.
Yeah.
High school. I remember I did a test once. I think it was an English test in about year 10.
Yeah.
And I went through it and I was like, I've aced this test. Like every question is just bang, bang, bang. And I went out of that exam just thinking I've A+. And we got the results back and the teacher kept me in. I didn't get my results. And she called me in at the end of the class and she's like, I just want to go over some of these answers. And I looked at it and it was an F.
Wow.
And it was like, out of 100, it was like a 20 out of 100. And I'm like, what's going on here?
This doesn't compute.
And she's like, she read the first question and she said, can you read your answer? And the answer had nothing to do with the questions.
Wow.
And that was like the first time where I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because in my head, I was so confident that I'd absolutely ace this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then to see what I'd written, and once she started to read it, I was like, holy shit, what have I done here? And not long after that, I actually ended up leaving school.
Wow.
I just dropped out.
Yeah, and why you dropped out? Because you just felt so out of place. What was that? Why were you so? What was this disparity between what you perceived and what that was? Was there a problem there?
Well, this is the thing that I've tackled so much in the last 10 years is I didn't know. I couldn't connect my thoughts and my emotions to my actions. I would just get clouded in my head and expressing emotions just didn't come for me when it was something personal. If it was, a lot of people would come to me with their problems and be like, hey, I've got this problem with a girl, I've got this problem in life. And I was great at sorting out your problems. But as soon as it was my problem, I couldn't do it.
Why do you think that was?
So early on, I went through some sexual abuse.
Okay.
About 10 to 12.
Wow.
And that was something that I buried for a long time. I'd forgotten about it. And it started coming up again sort of in my early mid-20s.
Okay.
And the first time I ever spoke about it was 27, drunk at a New Year's Eve party with family. And I just blurted it out, 2 a.m. And it took everyone by surprise. And it got a bit emotional. And then we woke up and we never spoke about it again.
Wow.
But I think that trauma was something that whenever emotions come up, something hard in my life come up, something in my head just turned off, and I called it cloudy mind, and I just wouldn't even go there.
Wow.
I did that thing of the typical man, just suck it up and be strong, and I had such a strong willpower that I could do that. I just bury my head in the sand and just push through. That's what I was taught. I grew up in a family that was a lot of masculine energy. There was 2 sisters and a mother and a father that was never there. We lived well. We had a lot of money. He worked multiple jobs. We never went without. But we went without leadership. We went without a role model. And the women and the mother, they had to be the masculine
Stepped
energy.
into the masculine, yeah.
And it was just, everything was a fight. It was the loudest person won, and a lot of judgmental, like, you did this. Yeah, but you can't talk. You're the same. It was very, very competitive, and you had to be that ego warrior to win in that household, and that's what it was about. It was about winning. So I just continued through with what I knew, because that's what you know. So you just get on with what you know. And I had the gift of the gab, so I could talk my way into extensions. And yeah, in year 10, you couldn't get away with that shit that you got away with in year 7, 8, 9. I talked my way into a bunch of extensions on things that I just hadn't done, exams. And I had, they were like, all right, you've got term 2 holidays. You've got to get all this stuff done that you haven't done, or else you're already failing year 10. And I think it was the first day of those holidays, we got a phone call from a family friend. One of the guys had broken his leg, couldn't do his job. And they said, oh, does Grant want to do 2 weeks working in a warehouse, running a warehouse full time? So I went, fuck yeah, I'll go earn some cash. And then at the end of the 2-3 weeks, had to go back to school. Morning, mum's like, all right, you're not in your school uniform. And I just said to her, well, I can't go back. She's like, what do you mean? And I told her, I said, I had all these exams I had to do, and I went and worked that job. I can't go. And she said, well, you better get a job. So that's what I did.
Wow. So year 10, what age is that? So 16?
16.
16?
Yeah.
Okay, so 16, straight into work?
Straight into work, yep.
Wow.
Started working. I did a few jobs. I wanted to be a chef. Did that for a little while, and then got into labour.
Yeah.
So I was doing turf, sort of like landscaping. Applied for the army. I was going to go to the army. Failed the medical.
Wow.
That's a bit later, but yeah, just started the physical stuff. Was a concreter, and then was a concreter for.
What
a
age
very
is
long
that
time.
taking us up to there?
From 16 to sort of like 22.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for sharing such a difficult part in your life. Very courageous of you, and just people like yourself sharing that will help a lot of men. So I really respect you. I appreciate you. Thank you. Yeah, that would have followed you for a while. Yeah. So you're now into your kind of early 20s, and it sounds like you're hopping around, still not finding, where you want to be. Where did it lead from there?
So I ended up having kids at about 21.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like, all right, I'm going to go to the army. Was with my partner, was doing the concreting thing, and I'm like, this is just a part-time gig just to get some money while I apply for the army. Everyone that I worked with was like, nah, you're going to be doing this forever. And I'm like, nah, I'm not doing this forever. I got
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to be special forces, and went in, was doing well with everything. Doing the medical, they go to take my blood pressure, And they take it off, they take it again, they get me to lay down, take it again. Are you all good? Like, are you a bit stressed? I'm like, no, but now I'm starting to get stressed while you're asking these questions.
Yeah.
They're like, give you 5 minutes, come back in with like 3 doctors. And I'm like, what the fuck's going on? They're like, we've called you an ambulance. You got to go to hospital. I was like 180 over 150. They thought I was going to have a heart attack.
Fuck.
Turned out it was stress. Just working in a relationship I didn't want to be in. Kids, no money. Didn't know who I was. And I was just living with that day to day.
And no guidance, no mentor, no male role model in your life, no. Just battling along still.
Mm-hmm.
So common.
Yeah. Yeah.
So common. Okay, and where did you go from there?
There was a bit of a spiral. So we broke up at 25. We ended up having another kid. We just kept going, but that relationship was done.
And you say in that relationship, because obviously we're going straight into it, and we'll get to the pillars in a second, and your rating, that love and relationships, you said they're in a relationship, shouldn't have been in, right? Because you probably didn't know yourself, right? So if you don't know yourself, how the hell are you going to choose the right partner, right?
Exactly.
It's funny, I say it time and time again, that love and relationships pillar for men, I'd say 90% of the men that I'm working with, even to this day, it took me till I was 46 to understand who I was, because I just never asked myself the questions.
Yep.
And I kind of knew, but I didn't we were talking before about, I always say, if you can see it, you can manage it. If you put it down on a paper and you go, oh, hi, that's me, it makes it easier for yourself, right? Yeah. And then you go, well, if this is me and that's my partner, are they matched? Oh, no, they're a bit like this. Oh, well, how can we bring them together?
Yeah.
And it's so simple. And I think if more men knew that, there's a lot of relationships we probably wouldn't get into, but it would help us kind of have decent conversations to form them in. So it's really interesting to me that you kind of, what I'm seeing here is somebody kind of a bit lost, stumbling through life and just trying to fill holes. Really, really interesting. And, already all this story forces this, that, married, kids. Wow. Okay. I'm on tenterhooks. What happened next?
So, I was doing what everyone else was telling me to do. I had my partner's parents saying, well, you got to get married. You got to have a good job. You got to make good money. You got to buy a house. So I was trying to do all the things that society expects us to do. And the ongoing thing that I found, recurring thing, is that every time I've tried to do what society expects us to do, I can do it to a certain point, but then I fail. And I was going into a lot of relationships up until, early 30s where I was taking this baggage. I was like, if I just get this girl, if I just get this job, then all my problems will be fixed. And then you get that job and you get that girl, and 6 months later, they're still fucking there. You've just been a chameleon. You've gotten to that point, and then you go, okay, well, why aren't I fucking fixed?
Yeah.
And then you're in these relationships, and they're like, that was an ongoing thing. Is just that back to we ended up breaking up. We separated. I went a bit wild from 25 through to 28. And then...
What did wild consist of? Just getting hammered and going bananas and...
Partying, drugs, booze, Once I had 4 or 5, then I was having 10 to 20, and then we'll get in a bag, and then it just continued, and it was just a escapism. I just needed to be out of my head.
Just running away from yourself.
Just running. And then, a lot of periods in time there, I was into these sports, long distance sports, mountain biking, 24-hour racing, still just running, just doing it in a healthy way.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're doing that at the same time?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, you're gifted.
Yeah. So like from 14, played basketball for state, played netball for Australia, athletics for state.
Wow.
I did a lot of good things, but then, just got caught up in not knowing who I was and doing everything. I wanted to do everything. I'd do something for a while and then get bored and move on to the next thing. Get bored.
Why do you think that was?
just didn't know who I was. You can have the best intentions in the world, but if it's not coming from the right place, you're not going to get the right result. You can do the same thing 50 times, but it's not until you change where it's coming from that you can get a different result.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so from there, like, what age were you? Because did you have an accident or there was an injury? When did that occur?
Yep. So, about 29, still concreting by myself now.
So still concreting, partying, doing all your long distance stuff. So trying to balance out the pain with this. But I think I love that analogy. You were still just running, right? Mm-hmm. You know, even this thing is running away from yourself. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then
I get to 29, and I need to get out of concreting because I can see where it goes. I can see the guys that are 60 still doing this job, and not to be rude, but there's a lot of no-lifers that have just got nothing going on. They're alcoholics, they're druggos, they've got multiple kids, they hate their life. I just listen to these guys just whinge and whinge and whinge and whinge, and it's like, fuck, do something about it then. Like, you're just out here whinging, being a bitch. You got yourself here. Like, I don't want to fucking be like you. That's fucking miserable.
Yeah, and you make a really good point. It's like, however way you frame it, whether you go, hard in and say, you're being a bitch, sort it out, or you be softer, whatever the way is, the only person who's going to do is you. Exactly. I say it all the fucking time. So, who you're talking to, fucking look yourself in the mirror, tell yourself, and take fucking action, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, so you decided to take some action.
Yeah, I was like, I got to get out of this. I said to my parents, I'm going to have a leap year like you do when you're in college. You have you have a year of doing whatever. I said, I'm going to move to the city. I'm going to move to Melbourne from Geelong. I'm going to move to Melbourne. I want to be a barista.
Oh, okay. Barista now. Let's go.
And I said, I just want to find a new avenue for my life. I want to change my trajectory that I'm on. So I was like, I'm going to move to Melbourne. I had that fitness mind, that fitness head. And I knew that I could keep going down the drugs and alcohol, or I didn't know it at the time, but I had a feeling inside that there was a better way to do it. I didn't necessarily know it at the time, but then when I looked back, I was like, that's what I was doing. So instead of putting it all into the drugs and the alcohol, I started to put it into the fitness. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, I ended up, I was watching stuff on YouTube, and I was like, all right, I'm going to go vegan. And I went to I was in Melbourne. I went to a vegan seminar, started talking to this guy. I'd just seen kombucha was a thing. And I saw kombucha at the vegan seminar, whatever it was, convention.
Yeah.
And I started talking to this guy who was selling it, and I'm asking him questions, and I'm giving him information about it and saying, okay, well, it says this, like, what about that? And he's like, you speak really well. He goes, would you like to interview for a job? We're looking for a BDM, business development manager. I think you'd be good in sales. Why don't you try? So ended up, I got that job. I was a BDM for a Remedy Kombucha. And that was sort of a different way of living. That was the start of me getting out of the way I was going and moving down a healthier road of life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you enjoyed that job?
I loved it.
Yeah.
How you sort of approach people. I was very good at reading a person. I can get in my head a lot, and everyone's so different. Certain people you can sell. Like, he taught me how to sell. Like, you've got to get your sale pitch down 20 seconds on what you got to say to get your product in, and that wasn't me. The way that I would sell is.
Connect.
You walk in, if it's an old lady, they just want someone to talk to, and you talk to someone for half an hour and they go, oh, what are you even doing here? And I'd be like, oh, well, I got this product. I could chuck a free box in your fridge, leave it there, I'll come back in a week and see how it goes. And usually they'd be calling me going, this product is going off its head. We need more.
Yeah, beautiful.
Other people, you could tell like they were business orientated. You'd go in there and you'd say, you got a 300% return margin on this. I'll give you a free box. And as soon as they hear free, they're just like, oh, sweet. So just figuring out what the person was.
You enjoyed that kind of emotional intelligence dynamics of the sales. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then I started to, I was in CrossFit, yoga, So I just started I hit every CrossFit gym, every yoga studio. And I'll just be like, hey, I want to train here. So they go, all right, train. And then they'll be like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I sell kombucha. Oh, we love kombucha. Oh, well, I'll put a box in here. I'll give you a fridge. We'll put a fridge in your CrossFit gym and we can move it. Don't even worry about the first box. And
Easy.
It just, we had it everywhere.
Beautiful.
And then all I was doing was I would go from one studio to the next to the next. I was just training for free all across Melbourne. So, yeah.
Nice. Win-win.
Yeah.
Nice. So where did that take you to? So now you're in a bit of a steady job, you're enjoying it, and I suppose you're finding a bit of purpose in that connection, enjoying that kind of thing. And
Yep.
you probably get a bit of personal growth there.
Yeah.
Where did that take you?
So at this stage, I'm training myself at this stage. I'm doing sort of ultra running.
Ultraman now. Wow.
Yeah, I'm doing long
hell, is that
distance
anything
running.
you don't do?
Long distance running, 100K mountain bike rides, 24-hour running races, Tough Mudders,
Wow.
all that type of stuff. Spartan race. I was traveling around Australia doing Spartan race. I was doing pretty good. Like, they're pretty competitive. Tough Mudder was more of a fun thing. Spartan was a bit more competitive. So I was placing pretty high in them. So I was ended up doing the Australian national scene with those.
Oh, wow.
And then I just tweaked my back at work one day. I got a bit of a stiff back. My boss was like, oh, you got to go see someone about that. Saw a specialist in Melbourne, had scans, and they said, she just said, your back's fucked, basically. She said, you're going to be in pain for the rest of your life. You're never going to be able to do any sports. You're never going to run again.
Holy shit.
You're going to be on meds for the rest of your life.
Holy shit.
And I walked out of that just like in tears. I got back to the car and I just burst into tears. I remember I called two people. I called my mum and I called one of my friends. And that was my life. That was the thing that was, I'd finally made this change.
It's the thing that's followed you. It's been your kind of safety net from those kid days all the way through. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so that was the way that I was changing my life. And now I've got someone saying that you're never going to do it. And it fucking broke me. And then in that car, in a split second, I went from in tears, just being like, you don't know who the fuck you're talking to.
I love that. I love that.
And I had a friend who had just started doing Ironman training with a club.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to do Ironman. And I'm going to do an Ultraman.
Fuck, let's go from telling you're not going to walk to that.
Yeah, I was like, that's just who I am. Like, you tell me one thing, you don't know who you're talking to. That might fly for 99% of people, but not me.
Love that.
And that was a test. I was like, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you what I can do. So yeah, I started training full time for an Ironman.
How did you work around the back injury?
So it just it come good. It was just a little tweak at that stage. I just tweaked it, but I just got back on with it. I'd always sort of had Sherman's and scoliosis and knee issues and this and that, but it wasn't a big issue. It would get stiff and it would get sore at times, but I'll just get on with it.
Keep moving.
Yeah. Just keep going. And it wasn't a super big issue.
Yeah. Well, you didn't make it a super big issue. You're resilient and you cracked on. Good on you. Good on you. Okay. So where does it leave us now?
So after a year of training, I did an Ironman. I did a half that was pretty competitive. I did a full. I took a few months off because then I was going to start, that was 1 year of full-time training. I was working 3 days as a concreter, 6 days as an athlete, plus camps. I'd go away and do camps occasionally. So I wasn't working much, but it was good money.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend, he's like, hey, listen, I can pay you $500 a day, 6 days a week, come concrete. I was having 3 months off. So I was like, all right, fuck it. That's what we need to do, right? We need to make money, good money. So I started that 2 weeks into that, back on some heavy tools. It was like, let's just get this. We had a job to do, 150 homes. Once those 150 homes were done, we were going to have enough capital in the business that I'll just become the 2IC and we'd have a group working underneath us. And and then it would be a lot more easier. But it was just like, we just got to get through
There's a
this.
finish line I need to run
Yep,
to.
yep. 2 weeks into it, driving to work in the morning, I was in tears. I couldn't drive, but I was still driving, just screaming. Each day just got worse and worse and worse until, that second week of working there, I was in hospital.
Wow.
I could not move at all, just in excruciating pain. Physically, if you looked at me, my body was just out of alignment. It was sticking out the side. My spine was all messed up. I remember hobbling into the hospital in Geelong. I had to get driven in a car. They had to lay all the seats flat, and I just laid in the back of the car. They took me into hospital. And then that started like 5-year injury.
How was that fucking 5 years, my friend?
It was the best and the worst thing that happened to me.
Yeah? Why is that?
Because that's the thing that made me change my life. That was my rock bottom. And I could have given into it, but I decided to, I think one thing that I took out of that is nothing is good or bad. Nothing is negative or positive. It exists, and it's the energy that we put into it that make it good or positive. So just because something negative comes into your life doesn't mean that it's negative. It's only negative if you see it that way.
Oh, beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thanks for sharing.
Anytime.
What? So that darkest point is that? Because I looked at your scores, and we obviously did our ratings here, and I think at your lowest, I think you scored 2 out of 20, which is, it's particularly low. Most people, most guys who are going through this ratings, in all of the pillars, they do score low. But the 2 things that you can hang your hat on here is, the one thing that you got was exercise regularly throughout everything. And again, that was the one thing that you never lost. So I always say you need something as a safety net, and you've been through a lot there, right? You've been through, some really vulnerable stuff that you've shared, and that exercise really is. And I say to men, you find one of the pillars and make sure you've got one that you've got locked in. It can be your safety net at those tough fucking times, and that was for you.
Yep.
You're running away from everything, but still, that's giving you some juice. So I can really understand how that would have affected you at that rock bottom moment. How dark did it get for you then at that rock bottom moment?
If I didn't have kids, I would have killed myself. It was just, I'd gone from being physical, everything that I did was physical, like I said, to, I think for 3 years, all I did was sit on a couch. I couldn't pick up a kettle.
Wow.
So I had L3, L4, L5, and my SI joint were all ruptured, 70%, 80% hanging out into my spinal column. They went in, they did a bunch of disectomies, had some relief. I ended up having 4 surgeries on all the discs. And then the last surgery I had was an internal fusion, which was pretty intrusive, and there was a lot of issues that come with the surgery other than just the injury, just the way that they do it. There's issues that come up with that. So, coming back from that, I remember having like a stress attack, like in front of your kids, because I still had my kids there week on, week off. It was through COVID, no support. I had all those concreter friends. I went to fitness. I lost all those concreter friends. And then I had the triathlete friends, had the injury, and they didn't have time for me. They're training full time. They don't have time to come sit with me on a couch. I didn't have that connection with my family. I didn't want it. I was too stubborn, and I struggled with those emotions. So I didn't want it. I never had that thing of, I didn't hug my parents. Like, no one hugged, no one touched. So yeah, I was just doing it by myself, but I loved my kids. My kids are everything to me. And
Take your time.
yeah, I remember I actually found a guy dead on the beach one morning on one of my walks. He'd committed suicide.
Fuck.
Same age as me. He was like 34. And it didn't affect me. So like the cops come, they shut off the beach. He jumped off a cliff. And yeah, he was still making noises. He had air escaping from him, and I didn't realise, but yeah, I thought he was a sunbaking in his clothes at 9 a.m. And then I realised. So yeah, I remember having the interview with the cops, and they were like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sweet." And the next day, told a few people, and they're like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine. What are you talking about?" Like, had no effect on me. And I think I was just going through what I was going through. I was just switched off. I didn't have emotions. And yeah, I just got to this stage where I felt something in my head, something in my body, something physically snapped. And I had all this anger, and I had this like, why me, why me? And something snapped inside me. That's the only way I can describe it. And I gave up. And I knew at that stage that if I didn't have kids, if I didn't have that to like fight for, that would have been me.
Big realization.
Mm.
What did you do after that event?
Well, it had been from 29, like when I got that job in Melbourne. It started a bit of a snowball of me figuring out who I am and taking ownership, and little bit by little bit, I didn't know it at the time, but I'd started this journey. And I started to take ownership and responsibility in some of these things, like I said, with the energy that you put into things. That was one of the things that had come up, and everything that I was doing through this injury, sitting there every day, I was watching. I started to read. I started to figure out how I was a broken person. I wanted to put myself back together.
Physically and mentally.
Everything. And I just kept that journey going. And as I worked through it, I would talk to people, I would meet people, and I would open up to people. And it was, so many things happen, and you just go, fuck, that's crazy. Like I'd talk to these people on the beach, and instead of saying, when they ask you, hey, how are you going? Instead of saying, yeah, I'm good, how are you? When they said, hey, how are you going? I'd say, not good. And I would open up and I would talk to these people. Not everyone, but there'd be certain people, and I wouldn't know why. I'd pick them. But I just felt something. And I would say something, and they would, every time, 9 times out of 10, they would say, I've just had that injury, or my partner has got that injury. And then we would end up standing on the beach for hours talking, getting information, go read this book, go see this doctor, go use this medication, whatever it was. It was just positivity, and everything just started to snowball from there and just get bigger. And yeah, people would always say to me about my back, they're like, oh, that's so bad. Oh, that's so bad. I feel so sorry for you. And I was like, this is the best thing that ever happened to me because it changed me. And I just feel that we all have things that come into our life. Sometimes for some people it's something smaller, and sometimes people don't need something. They can just change. Other people, I just put it down to my willpower is so strong and I'm such a stubborn dog that I basically had to break my back to get me to see there's a better way to do it.
Wow. That's a great way of putting it, my friend. And like, what courage, you've been through, everybody's dark time is their darkest time, but that's pretty dark, right? All the things you've been through. And I say, watching you kind of, you just took me on a journey there, and I can see it, running the break. It's almost like shocking to see that the guy committed suicide. One of the main reasons we're doing what we're doing is because of all these statistics going the wrong way, mental illness and loneliness and depression and suicidality going through the roof. But, you seeing that person there was probably it's almost divine intervention to show you this could be you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, beautiful. And I just love your kind of the way you're flipping it, to say, because it is like, we grow from the pain. We grow. It's that fucking emotional pain that's the only thing that's going to usually change it, because the vanilla land doesn't tend to change it a lot, does it? When everyone's just floating around and it's okay, you know what I mean? But that okay can be death by 1,000 cuts, but it takes time.
Yep.
But when you're a stubborn fucker like yourself, you're going to need that literally to break your back and break you kind of mentally. So no, I think it's a lot of people can learn from this, and also, as I say, a lot of people's worst moment is their worst moment. But, if I can look what you've been through and look where you are now. So from someone who's bedridden, on a sofa for 3 years, going through all this, look where you are now.
Yep.
Let this be an inspiration from anybody out there who is able-bodied, who can make these steps, because you're living proof. You were, showed you're not going to walk again. 3 years on a sofa. How did you get here now? How did you get to how did you build yourself back up?
Long and slow. I had to let go of that ego. Ego was the thing that protected me. And I had to learn feelings and emotions and expressing how to do that, and just change everything. Change your outlook. Slow down. Exhale your breath and just be like, okay, I'm here now. Someone cuts you off. It's like you can jump and you can be like, you dickhead. Or you can just sit in the moment and just let it go.
It is what it is.
Yeah. But I just changed. I opened up my eyes, and eventually I got to a place where I could open my heart. And that was the biggest change for me, was when I got to the point of opening my heart. But that was very long down the track.
And the physical side? The physical, I'll pause on the heart thing, because that's something I've had to open up. The physical, how did you actually repair the back to be standing as you are today, doing whatever you do today? But apparently you told me before we started, you're going to do a UFC fight. You've never done UFC, and you're going to fucking do a UFC fight. I can see you've got this, burning, desire, which it feels like you're unstoppable when you put your mind to it. So how did you fix that back?
It was just slow. It was slow every day. Just get up and walk. I got a dog. Once after I had my first back surgery, I was like, all right, I had already booked in to do a 70.3 in 6 months. And I was like, I'll get a dog that can run, because after 3 months, I'll start running. And he'll be a good companion for me. And then after 2 months, I was like, okay, this isn't happening, but I still have this dog that needs to run. So he was a good excuse to get me off the couch. I easily could have just sat on the couch every day and felt sorry for myself and just spiraled. But I had that dog. I had something that I had to care for that got me up off the couch every day, and I just walked.
You're just chipping away.
I just walked.
Slow and steady wins the race, eh? Just keep moving. Progress.
Yeah.
Do you? I can see you've got an unbelievable mindset. Do you believe, like, the majority of stuff is in the mind, what you believe?
Fucking 1,000%.
Yeah.
So it's so quick. You listen to people and they go, I could never do that. And it's like, well, you're right. But you're wrong, But because you've got that mindset, you're right. You
Yeah.
can't. But change your mindset, and you can. There's nothing that we can't do. And the downside of believing that you can and giving it a go outweighs, like, you may not get to that pinnacle of where you want to be, but if you aim high enough and you believe in yourself enough, you're gonna make progress. You're gonna get somewhere that's better than where you are. And yeah, if you have that belief that and it's so easy in our society, I think, for us to put these labels on ourselves. And people would say to me, "Oh, what are you doing on the weekend?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go run 100 Ks and ride my bike, 200 Ks." And people would be like, "Oh, I could never do that." And it's like,
Well, you've just said you're never going to do it, right?
yeah. And that's the thing that drove me. They're like, "Oh, you're crazy." And it'd just be like, that was just more momentum for me to want to get out there and do it, because I don't know, that's what I get off on.
Yeah, but you make a good point. It is what you believe you can achieve. If you can see it, you can manage it. You can see it, you can do it. There's very little we can achieve if you really believe in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you were talking about your kind of escaping, and it sounded like you were escaping all your life, right? And you've been through a lot of tough stuff. And I think we've all been through some tough stuff, but yours particularly, raw and what you shared. You talk about opening your heart, because as men, when we're going through these tough times, we have to be stoic. You've described some certain areas. You have to protect yourself, and I've been there in different times, whether it be in family life, whether it be in work. Sometimes when you're going through these traumatic things, as I say, whatever your pain is, it can feel like the end of the world, right? And I remember locked in, and you do it for so long. This starts closing over, doesn't it? It's funny. It starts closing over, and you don't even realize it. And I think, part of my journey, my growth journey, getting a bit more spiritual in my old age, I kept turning up to, whatever I was turning up to. And people say, "Oh, I can see you, leader, I see this warrior, you need to open up your heart." And I'm saying, why do fucking people keep telling me I need to open up my heart? Do you know what I mean? And my missus would say, "Yeah, you need to." I'm thinking, what the fuck are all these on about, And it's just something that they must, and the more work you do on yourself, the more meditation, the more internal, what you go, fuck yeah. But there's a reason for that. It's like that. It's that little boy, the little child has had to protect themselves. And, relationships, breakups, family, whatever dynamics are going on. And I'm still unpicking that now. I'm still trying to. Luckily, I've got a really beautiful, divine, feminine woman in my life. You've met Katya.
Yep.
And that's helping me soften.
Yep.
I'm not having to fight or flight, because, you've been in those relationships where, it's people want to win arguments. You know what I mean? Instead of looking at the problem as a relationship problem, we both find a solution.
Yeah.
People want to win an argument, then the relationship loses. So you're constantly on guard. So you're keeping this lock, because at any given moment, shit can turn south, right?
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that now. Are you still working on that stuff? Have you managed to unpick that? What are you doing with that?
Relationships have always been a thing for me. I've had a lot of good girls come into my life, and the same thing would always happen. It would get to this point where I think I was just mimicking my parents. Like, I grew up in a family where the wedding certificate had been ripped up and stuck back together 7 times. Had been put in a frame and smashed, and the hatred that they had for each other behind their back was just, growing up with that as a kid, and you see them fight and then one walks away and you see the other one just scour at them and be like, fuck you. That sticks with you.
You pick up in it all, right?
You pick it up, and then I'll get into these relationships and everything would be great, great honeymoon. And then I would just grow this just hatred for these people that were supposed to be, they'd want to get married and have kids. And I was just self-destructing these relationships, because that's maybe
it's what familiar, right?
It's what I knew how to do.
It's a really good point. I'd just like to pause on that, because obviously a lot of men that I've been working with or coaching, some of them are kind of, we've got a lot of people who maybe men don't talk to this level sometimes. Mm-hmm. We're not educated like this. We're not mentored like this. You know, going to school and you're learning fucking trigonometry and all that crap instead of human emotions and what's going through. And I 100% believe, I'll say it time and time again, one of the initiatives we're going to do is going to be a children's initiatives. Hopefully it'll fucking change the world. I want to, people child to understand what emotions are, how to regulate, how to not pick up all these traumas. But for any men listening, when we talk about that inner child or stuff like that, it's literally, it's how I can see it. I don't know if you see it the same. It's like that inner child's in me now. And what happens at what you've just described is all that toxicity and that shit that's getting flown around in the house, that negative, horrible emotion, that child's sitting there going, fuck, soaks it all up. And it doesn't leave because they don't know how to process that emotion. And that's what the norm is. And it's like, that's what they expect relationships to be. So they kind of get drawn to these other relationships and they think this is the norm. And then they get into this, oh, that's normal. And it's programmed into them and they don't know why. And it's only as we get older, it's kind of like, how come I keep going into these relationships? How come I kept finding myself going into relationships with like women who are more in the masculine? But I'm so in my masculine, it doesn't work. It doesn't compute. I need a more of a feminine woman. And obviously everyone's bespoke, everything works for everyone. But for me, it doesn't work. And I'm thinking, I'm battling all the time here. What's going on? And it's because I hadn't sorted all of this inner child work out. And I don't think, again, one of the things we talk around is when we talk about internal work and some of this stuff, this is why we try and keep it simple and high level, is because I think men shy away from it because that sounds woo-woo. I haven't got an inner child. I don't even, some people don't even understand what the word presence means. You know what I mean? And it's like that's why I think men like yourself and what we're trying to share is to say, you've got to do this work. If you don't do this work, it follows you. It's like your shadow. You're running and it's just like running behind you saying, I'm going nowhere, mate. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a really good, I just wanted to pause there because what you described really brought it to life for me.
Yeah. It's 100% how it is, but it was a running thing that we'll get into these relationships and 2-3 years down the track they would be like, all right, let's have kids, let's get married, and I just couldn't commit, and it would get to a point where they just would have these fights and the relationship would break down, and they'd be like, I can't understand you, like you're good, and then you're the most confusing person in the world to be around. And it was because I didn't know me. How can someone else expect to know me? How can I care for someone else when I don't know what I'm doing, what's in my head? The person I am now is so far from the person I was in my 20s and earlier. It's unbelievable. But
how many men do you think are like that?
The majority.
It's fucking crazy.
It's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane. I would say 80 to 90% of men out there do not understand themselves to the level they need to make sure they enjoy life. And I think, but there's simple fucking tricks to do it. Ask certain questions, understand yourself. The impact can be life-changing. Fucking life-changing. And it's funny you just say that because because obviously I'm working with people and I'm asking these scores. And every time, the two questions, do you understand your non-negotiable values? No. What's that? And then have you had this discussion with your partner and framed it this way? Definitely not, because I don't understand that. And I would say 90 to 95% is no. And I'm like, and there's an eclectic mix of people. And that was myself until I was 46. I didn't, and I'm like, I think it's so simple to add such value to our lives. It's fucking crazy. Anyway, you go on. I just find it bamboozling.
What were we talking about?
You were talking about the fact that you didn't know yourself, and in your relationship, if you didn't know yourself, how the hell are you going to be able to connect with somebody else and give them what they need? Because you didn't even know yourself, right? And I think you were touching on, I think you were in a marriage or something like that.
Yeah. So, it was relationships were just always a struggle for me, and it was funny. Through that injury, I just, at the very start of the injury, basically 1 month into it, a long-term girlfriend had broken up with me. She said, I can't do it anymore. I can't wait anymore. Like, you're fucking, basically just, you're abusing me. and I was abusing them because I couldn't, and not like a physical thing, but like the way that I treated them, that hatred from my parents that I'd seen, I wasn't dealing with my inner frustrations, and I was expecting my relationships to fix me.
Yes.
And I just wasn't taking ownership. I had that pride, that like...
You bring something to life for me. I've been there as well, and it's a tough one. This one, isn't it? To look back and to realize what you've caused yourself, but others around you, and how you've. I'm not saying some of the people that have been in our life probably weren't meant for us, and they were there for a lesson and stuff like that. But you could have made it so much easier.
Yeah.
And I find there's been maybe women in my life, and I've been really negative with them, oh, what's this? It's only a birthday. I don't give a shit about that.
Yeah.
Or just being negative because I'm like, whatever. And I'm thinking, I would have been awful to be around with the thing. But with my friends, I might have been sweet or different environment.
Yeah.
But with the woman, I'm like, no. And it's always like, turn up at the door, how's your day? Shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and you think, fuck me, because we're a mirror, right?
Yeah.
I joked about it the other day. I can if I walk through the door and say to my missus and she says, how's your day? And I go, yeah, shit, being terrible. How's yours? Naturally, she's going to go, okay. And then I'll start getting some shit stuff from her, and the energy becoming low. And I did this exercise with myself the other day because we had one of those days because we had particularly busy, everything's going crap. And I said to myself, I'm going to walk through the door tomorrow, and I'm just going to purposely come through and be positive and energetic. And I fucked around and said, love you, missed the shit out of you, grabbed her ass. And the whole night was great. We were having a laugh. It was fun. But the same shit went on the next day.
Yeah.
But I'm just I'm a mirror of what I put out. As you said, it's that energy that you put out. And it's a tough one to look back and realise it wasn't all them.
Yeah.
Because your point you said there, it's almost you want that relationship, that chick to be perfect for you. Why aren't I doing all these things I like to enjoy? Why aren't you making me do all of these things? And it's like, it's only fucking you, right?
Yeah. I had a big thing of like, I'm not going to tick boxes because I'd had this thing of like out there ticking boxes and it wasn't working for me. I would get the job, I'd get the house, I'd get all this stuff and, I'm ticking the boxes. But then my inner work, I did no inner work. I didn't even know what inner work was. I'd never, feelings and emotions are not for dudes, they're for the women.
Exactly.
I just bring home the money and then it's all hunky-dory and it's not. So yeah, it wasn't until, I think a big thing for me that sort of helped me see things differently was like seeing how my kids reacted to me, seeing how the way I treat or the energy, like you said, I bring into my kids and how it affected them. Like my injury, I really saw it affect my kids in a big way. And like I said, they're the reason I stuck around, but they're the reason I was like, hey, I'm impacting them in a negative way. I can see it on their face, how it's affecting them, and it's not their fault. They don't deserve any of this. This is me. And I finally grew up and was like, I need to do this work. I need to figure it out. And, they had started to get in trouble at school. There was issues at school. They weren't listening to their mum. Their mum would call me up and be like, fuck, you got to do something about these kids. Like they're they won't listen to me. And, issues at school, fights, whatever. And, it was my little experiment I was doing these little things. I was starting to progress myself and I would just change my language around the boys. And I wasn't about rules you got to follow. Like you go to bed at this time, you wake up at this time. I'd be like, you can go to bed at whatever time you want, but you need to be up at a reasonable time in the morning. You need to be in a good mood. You need to be able to communicate at the table. You need to be able to get yourself to school. And my youngest one, the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he was up till 3 a.m. playing games. He would come out in the morning, eyes hanging out his head, and he'd be grunting, hey, Riley, how are you? And I was like, you notice how you've been going to bed later and now when you wake up, you're not in a good mood. It's hard to get up. You're tired. Do you think maybe they have a connection? And I did this at 10 and 12. And And within a couple of months, they were putting themselves to bed,
Oh, wow.
10:30, 9:30. Like, I remember one night, I think they stayed at my mum's place, and it was like a Saturday night, and my mum went in to see my older one, and it was like 9:30, and she walked in and the light was off. He was in bed, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing in bed?" And he's like, "Well, I'm going to go do this thing in the morning, and I was tired, so I jumped into bed."
What a beautiful value to bring you. Well, that's amazing.
So it's just, started to make that connection of like, don't give your kids these strict parameters to live in. Give them freedom. Let them make the mistake, but then be there to support them, and just put those thoughts into their head. You've got to show them support, but you got to let them make their own mistakes. And then you've got to give the language and the talk about, okay, well, why do you think this happened? Do you think you could have approached that better? Start to give them the tools to figure life out on them by themselves. All the things that I didn't have, I started to put into my kids, and the progressions that they made were just huge.
That's beautiful, mate.
Yeah.
And as I said to you before, I think if more people did that and had some kind of framework, because I think it's potluck depending on what parent, because you're in the minority, maybe have done all of that work, who then want to pass that on. Basically what you're doing is helping people, maybe your children, not pick up the traumas that you did, and everybody will have some stuff they need to unpick, but yours was fucking like this, maybe theirs will be a little bit like this.
And
right?
it is still a selfish thing. Like, I'm gaining from that. That's something that I'm gaining, but my kids are learning from it as well. And same with friends and family now. Like, you do the same thing. You can tell someone the answer, but the answer's not the journey. That's not the work. The work is in finding your answer your own way.
100, mate, beautiful. And I think it's got to be you, right? So you've got to do the work. But I think what you're doing there, I think you touched on it there where you said it's almost kind of feels selfish. I think it's something like that you said when you're helping people. But it is helping people, I believe, is the highest gift you can give to yourself. You know what I mean? To others, but to yourself, because it is so rewarding. I think that's what being authentic and being your true self is. Helping others is the thing, because then that ripple effect, you know what I mean? So beautiful what you're doing. What advice would you give to a man who's struggling, maybe like a younger version of yourself or someone difficult? What advice would you give to somebody? There's a lot of men out there. I think between 15 to 45. I think the highest form of death is suicide within males. Depression. Mental health there's a real crisis out there. Hence why we're trying to do what we're doing. What advice would you give to any young struggling men out there today?
You got to have an outlet. You're always gonna, it's not about, some people say you got to reduce stress, you got to reduce all these negative things in your life. I don't think it's about reducing the negativity, because there's always going to be something that's negative. There's always going to be something that's stressful. It's about figuring out what your tools are to deal with that stress, that anger, that sadness, whatever it is, that loneliness. These emotions come into our life every day, and they can sit in us. And if we leave them in there, they're just going to grow and fester and reproduce. We need an outlet for this stuff, If it's loneliness, you need to be making that connection. It's so easy to be like, oh, no one wants to contact me. Like, I'm just going to sit here and wait for someone. And then you just feel worse and worse. But you've got to get up. You got to get your ass up, and you got to get out and do something, Go have a conversation with the person at the coffee shop, like smile and start a convo, or someone, interact with people in society. If you have anger, frustration, go to the gym, punch a boxing bag,
Yeah.
Smash some weights out. I had a friend, she said she goes to the ocean and she sticks her head under the water and just yells. That's her outlet.
Scares the fishes.
But, you've got to have an outlet. You've got to have something to move that energy on. Don't hold on to that energy. Move that energy on whatever that energy is.
Oh, beautiful. Well said. And I think you touched on there, smile. I think smile is one of the biggest, it's like a cheat code in life, because you smile, you feel happier. And the more you do it, the happier you feel. But as I say, your world around you, because you smile at people, people smile back, and you know, this isn't too bad. As I said before, if we start snarling, the world will snarl back at you. So I think it's a real cheat code. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we wrap up? No? Have we missed anything on this incredible life story so far that you're on?
Heaps for sure, but it's there's no end point. It's just another level to get to. And every day I'm just, you know, I talk to friends and we communicate, and where are you on your journey? Not necessarily in that language, but you know, you see what other people are doing, and you say, well, you give them little tips and pointers and things that you did, and then you see it work for someone else, and they get to another level, and then you'll be down, and then you talk to one of your friends, and they're doing something, and it picks you up. And I think it's just about finding that community, finding those people, those core people that you can be around and can pick you up, and it's just about a continual forward propulsion in life.
I love that. You need that brotherhood. You need friends. We're not in this alone. If you open up to somebody and you be vulnerable, I guarantee people will help. You know, and it might be someone you don't even surprise. You said you used to talk, and people, you know, you smile and you talk, you get a call to talk to someone, talk to them. Yeah. They can help you. You know what I mean? So I think that's really powerful, and that's part of what we're doing. We believe in, you know, that reach one, teach one mentality. Let's help each other, and overall we can all lift up. As I say all the time, sometimes people sometimes obviously need counsellors for certain things, but I think just sharing with another guy and saying, look, I felt like this week, and you go, yeah, same here. And you go, oh, it's not just me.
It's not just me.
Yeah, it's not just me. That in itself is one of the biggest things of a release, right?
Yeah.
I think it's beautiful. But look, we could talk all day. I think we'll definitely do this again. Thanks so much for being vulnerable. You've got such a powerful story. I'm proud to know you. Proud to know what you've achieved so far, and the fact that you're going to do a UFC fight. Somebody who was on a bed how many years ago for 3 years, considering the worst out of possible, considering suicide, to be in the position you are now, to be facing forward, doing what you're doing for your kids, and going to do a UFC fight because you're nuts. It's just that if that's not inspirational to anybody out there, I don't know what is. So, Grant, thanks so much for coming in, and I really appreciate you.
Cheers,
Thank you, brother. Awesome.